Vanessa Williams made history as America's first Black Miss America, but then was forced to resign in tears just 72 hours later, all because of a set of photos that Penthouse published which were never meant to be published. So, who betrayed Vanessa Williams? Why did the pageant abandon her instead of defending her? This video breaks down how Vanessa Williams was really sold out, betrayed, and how she still pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in entertainment history. Back in the summer of 1982, 19-year-old Vanessa Williams was just trying to make it through college. She'd landed a summer job as a receptionist and makeup artist at a photography studio in Mount Kisco, New York, working for photographer Tom Chiapelle. Williams was a freshman at Syracuse University studying theater and music, and like most college students, she needed work to help pay the bills. Chiapelle had his eye on Williams. Not just as an employee, he wanted to photograph her. Here's where it gets interesting. Chiapelle approaches Williams with this pitch about artistic silhouettes where she'd be completely unrecognizable. I'm talking shadows and shapes for some classy magazine. Nothing explicit, nothing that would ever come back to bite her. Just art, he says. Professional art that would keep her identity completely hidden. Vanessa Williams needed that money, and this guy seemed legit. He had a real studio, acted professional during their conversations, presented himself as respectful. This was TEC Studios, a real business with real clients. Williams figured this was just another step in her journey to become a performer. What she didn't know was Chiapelle was already planning something different. During that photo shoot, he broke his own promise. Those artistic silhouettes? Forget about it. He shot her face clearly in several photos. Not shadows, not shapes. Full face, completely recognizable. The guy lied right to her face and she had no idea. Now here's the kicker. The photographer made her sign what was presented as routine paperwork at the shoot, a standard model release form. Williams thought it was just boring legal stuff that went with the territory for the silhouette shots. She trusted this guy who seemed professional and respectful during the whole shoot. Nobody explained the legal language to her. Why would they? She was 19, needed money, and trusted the adult in the room. Later, Williams would maintain she believed she had signed only a routine application and never consented to publication of any photographs. This is 1982. The legal landscape around model releases isn't what it is today. Standard forms existed, but most models didn't really understand what they were signing. Williams definitely didn't grasp the implications. She thought she was signing papers for those shadow photos that would never identify her. Instead, she just handed over what Chiapelle would claim were complete rights to images that showed her face crystal clear. 2 years pass. Williams goes from working at that photography studio to wearing the Miss America crown. Historic win. First Black woman to take the title. Whole country celebrating. She's on top of the world. And that's when Tom Chiapelle decides to cash in. He's got these photos sitting in his files, and now Williams is famous. The kind of famous that makes photos worth serious money. The photos that were supposed to be unrecognizable shadows became the weapon that would destroy America's first Black Miss America. Picture this, you're on top of the world one day, and 3 days later, you're holding a press conference to give up your dreams. That's exactly what happened to Vanessa Williams in July 1984. She's living her best life as Miss America, making appearances, doing photo shoots, planning her future. Then, Penthouse magazine contacts Miss America officials about the photos. Vanessa Williams didn't know Chiapelle had sold the photos. Didn't know they were about to be published. The first she heard about any of this was when the pageant officials came to her with devastating news that would change everything in a matter of days. The Miss America organization gave Williams exactly 72 hours to resign or they'd strip the crown publicly. No lawyers, no negotiations, no nothing. Just an ultimatum. The pageant bosses looked at this situation and made their decision fast. They wanted this problem to go away, and Williams was the problem. Here's what people don't understand about those 72 hours. This wasn't some quiet meeting in an office. The media went absolutely crazy. Reporters set up camp outside the Williams family home. Her mother, Helen, couldn't step outside without people screaming at her, and random strangers were calling their house at 3 in the morning. The family got death threats. Death threats because some photographer broke his promise and sold photos to a magazine. The whole family was trapped in their own home, while the country decided whether Williams deserved this treatment or not. Williams later said she felt like a sacrificial lamb during those 3 days. Think about that for a second. She's 21 years old, and everyone who was supposed to protect her just abandoned ship. The Miss America people who crowned her, they're now treating her like she's radioactive. The managers and agents who were kissing up to her just weeks before, nowhere to be found. Now here's where it gets really brutal. The endorsement deals vanished overnight. I'm talking about real money here. Williams had lined up 4 Bob Hope TV specials. Gone. A huge Gillette campaign worth serious cash. Disappeared. These companies acted like she had some contagious disease. One phone call from their legal departments and Williams went from Golden Girl to persona non grata. Her mother, Helen, described the whole thing as really traumatic for their family, emotionally, but primarily financially. See, this wasn't just about losing a crown. This was watching your entire future get destroyed while the whole country watched and took sides. Williams went from being America's darling to what the media called a national disgrace in less than a week. Miss America officials made it clear they weren't interested in fighting Penthouse or standing by their title holder. The organization prioritized saving face over protecting the young woman they'd just crowned months earlier. They let her keep a rhinestone replica crown and her scholarship funds, but everything else was gone. On July 23, 1984, Williams stood at that podium for what would become one of the most painful press conferences in pageant history. She looked straight into those cameras and stated clearly, "I never consented to the publication or use of these photographs in any manner." Her voice was steady, but you could see the pain in her eyes. This press conference marked the end of her reign and the beginning of something nobody saw coming. But here's what's crazy about this whole mess. Everyone thought losing everything was the end of Vanessa Williams' story. What they didn't realize was that this scandal was about to reveal something much darker about America itself. The public reaction exposed something America wasn't ready to face. This wasn't really about nude photos. It was about a country that had just crowned its first Black Miss America, and deep down, a lot of people weren't comfortable with that. Many commentators and African American observers at the time saw clear racial undertones in how the scandal was handled. The images themselves included scenes interpreted as interracial nudity and same-sex content. In 1984, this was guaranteed to send the Bible Belt into righteous fury. Conservative groups who had been quietly uncomfortable with a Black Miss America suddenly had their excuse to tear her down. They didn't have to say they were upset about her race. Now they could talk about morality and values and American standards. The media treated these photos like they were absolutely scandalous. Every news report made them sound like hardcore adult movie. Every headline acted like Williams had committed some terrible crime against America itself. The timing couldn't have been worse for her. Here's the twisted part about the whole reaction. Some of the same people celebrating her historic win were now calling her a national disgrace. Politicians who had been happy to pose for photos with the first Black Miss America suddenly couldn't distance themselves fast enough. Community leaders who had praised her achievement were now giving speeches about moral standards and protecting American values. Even Hugh Hefner defended Williams during this mess. Think about that for a second. Playboy had actually been offered the photos first and turned them down. Hefner said Penthouse published without her consent and that Williams was the single victim in all of this. He stated that her right to make this decision was taken away from her. But Bob Guccione didn't care about any of that. He was making serious money from the September 1984 issue, which became Penthouse's best-selling issue ever and reportedly netted Guccione about $14 million. Many African-American commentators saw exactly what was happening here. They believed this whole episode was an effort by Guccione, the media, and the pageant organizers to demonstrate that Black women are not fit for the peaches and cream title of Miss America. They weren't wrong about that assessment. The whole thing became less about Williams and more about America's hang-ups with Black women being both beautiful and sexual. The Miss America pageant demanded that its winners project purity. Contest rules at the time favored single, unencumbered contestants, while pageant culture itself commodified contestants' images every single year. The hypocrisy was staggering, but nobody wanted to talk about that part. This wasn't just a pageant scandal. It was a mirror showing America's deep-seated racism and sexism all at once. The way people reacted to those photos revealed more about American society than it did about Williams herself. She became the target for every anxiety the country had about race, sex, and power. Williams was caught in the middle of a cultural war she never signed up for. A 19-year-old girl who needed rent money became the symbol of everything America was afraid to confront about itself. Everyone expected this scandal to be the end of her story. Everyone thought she'd disappear quietly and fade into history as a cautionary tale. But Williams had something nobody counted on. She had raw determination and talent that nobody could take away from her. Most people would have disappeared after that kind of public humiliation, but Williams had other plans. When you lose everything in front of the whole country, you've got two choices. You can crawl into a hole and never come out, or you can get mad and prove everyone wrong. Williams chose option 2. While everyone expected her to fade away quietly, Williams decided to rebuild her entire career from scratch. She wasn't going to let some photographer and a magazine destroy what she'd worked for her whole life. This girl had been performing since she was a kid, studying music and theater at Syracuse University before this whole Miss America thing happened. She knew she had talent that went way beyond wearing a crown and waving at crowds. Industry doors closed for a time, but she persisted. Record labels wouldn't take meetings with her. Agents hung up when her name came up. Casting directors acted like she didn't exist. The entertainment industry can be brutal when you're hot, but when you're scandal material, they treat you like you've got the plague. Williams used that rejection as fuel, working twice as hard to prove she was more than just a scandal. Every door that slammed in her face just made her more determined. She took voice lessons, acting classes, anything to sharpen her skills. While other people were gossiping about her past, she was preparing for her future. The breakthrough came in 1988 with her debut album, The Right Stuff. This wasn't some vanity project. Williams could actually sing, and this album proved it. The thing went gold, produced 3 top 10 singles, and earned her 3 Grammy nominations. Suddenly, people remembered that she had real talent, not just a pretty face. Then came 1991's The Comfort Zone, and this is where Williams really showed what she was made of. This album went triple platinum, and the lead single, Save the Best for Last, reached #1 for 5 weeks straight. 5 weeks at the top of the charts. Radio stations that wouldn't play her music 3 years earlier were now putting her songs on heavy rotation. Williams wasn't done proving herself. She conquered Broadway in 1994, taking the title role in Kiss of the Spider-Woman, and later appeared in Into the Woods in 2002. She got a Tony nomination for her Broadway work, which meant the theater world was taking her seriously as a performer. On television, she landed a long-running role as Wilhelmina Slater on Ugly Betty from 2006 to 2010 and appeared on Desperate Housewives. In film, she showed up in major movies like Eraser in 1996 and Soul Food in 1997. She also recorded a version of Colors of the Wind for Disney's Pocahontas, and that song became a major hit associated with critical awards. Her voice was everywhere, reminding people she had pipes that could handle any genre. Over her career, Williams earned 11 Grammy nominations, a Tony nomination, and dozens of other honors. These weren't sympathy awards. This was the industry recognizing genuine talent and hard work. By the 2000s, people loved her again. But this time, it was different. They loved her for her talent, not her crown. She was completely in control of her career. The scandal that was supposed to end everything actually made her more famous and more determined than Miss America ever could have. Williams turned the worst thing that ever happened to her into the foundation of a legendary career. She proved that talent beats scandal every single time, as long as you're willing to work for it. But there was still one thing missing from her story. 32 years after they forced her out, Miss America finally did the right thing. In September 2015, Williams was back as head judge for Miss America, and CEO Sam Haskell stood up in front of millions of viewers with an apology that nobody saw coming. He looked right at her and said that though none of us currently in the organization were involved in 1984, on behalf of today's organization, he wanted to apologize to her and her mother, Miss Helen Williams, for anything that was said or done that made her feel any less the Miss America that she is and Miss America she always will be. The audience gave a standing ovation. Williams replied, "Thank you, so unexpected but so beautiful." I did the best that I could during my reign. That moment proved something powerful. Vanessa Williams ultimately showed that talent defines you more than any scandal ever could. If you liked this video, make sure to watch other videos of our channel about beautiful women of yesteryear.